Welcome to another episode of Adulting with Wine. I'm your host, Sasha, and today is the beginning of May, and I'm so excited for it. It is also a festival nearby where I live. So if you hear any music during this episode, just enjoy the sounds of the Shaky Knees festivals. Shout out to them. This May I kind of wanted to do a Mother's Day special. Last year I did an episode on my dad, right before he passed, a couple months before he passed away. And some of you were really interested in that episode. Someone actually reached out to me about it. So I thought I'd do one on my mom, tell all the trauma of my life with you guys. Because, that is what God led me to do. Here we are. Me and my mom never reached a point where we never spoke again like my dad did. And actually, I have an update on my dad, which you'll hear next month for Father's Day. But we never reached that point in our relationship, but there was definitely a lot of tension and trauma there from our relationship, but we were able to repair it. So this episode will be another 2-part episode, and I will be getting into how we repaired our relationship in our next episode. So all of the trauma will be in this one. So we never reached a point where we never spoke, but there was a lot of tension that got built up to a point where it got really intense. So I actually never really thought me and my mom had that many issues or problems, nor did I really notice it. I didn't notice it until I moved out. That's when it became like a major issue. I didn't really notice my trauma, or like I had a lot of trauma attached to our relationship until I started therapy a few months later after I moved out. So a little backstory, so when I moved out, I didn't even tell my mom that I was planning to move out, thinking about moving out, anything about moving out until I signed a lease with my then friend who I was going to live with. So I didn't know that I wanted my own space. I never had my own room throughout my childhood. I've always had to share with a sibling, whether my brother or my sister. So I thought this was a great opportunity, because she asked me to be her roommate, to then have, my own spot, my own place, my own room, finally. So I didn't tell her. I told my dad actually first. How ironic. Because at the time we were on better terms, me and my dad. But when I told my dad, I told him maybe I don't remember if I told him right before I signed the lease or after as well, but he was just he was mad at me because he was just you have to tell your mom. Did you tell your mom? Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I'm going to tell her, whatever. So anyway, came down to telling her, and I was guys, I was nervous. I was scared as hell to tell my mother that I was moving out. See, that's the thing, I think, especially with a lot of black children and their parents, a lot of your relationship with them is surrounded by fear. You don't want to tell them anything because of fear, because you fear them. So I was scared as hell, but I told her, and she was just I guess my dad had already spoken to her, because when I got to have a conversation with her, she was kind of just I don't know why you wouldn't want to tell me. I don't know why you kept this from me, blah, 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 whatever. At the time, she was considering another option of moving in with my cousin. We had our own apartment, but my cousin had a bigger apartment, and she kind of needed help, and it was just her and my brother left. So she was just you kind of made my decision easier, because now I can decide between this or that, blah, 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 whatever. Because essentially, if she moved in with my cousin, there would be no space for me. So kind of anyway, I would have been in the loop if I didn't take this option, because what if she decided to move in with my cousin? What was I going to do, So it comes time for me to move. She does not help me move. She does not ask if I need help to move. I moved using Uber and Lyft. And my boyfriend at the time, my now ex. That's how I moved. She did not help me move. She did not ask if I needed help, none of that. And then when I officially moved, she got nasty with me. It was just like, you would have thought that I wasn't her daughter. Like, we weren't related at all. Like, she wouldn't really call me, which is very odd if you know my mother. Well, I guess for most people and their mother, like, she wouldn't call me. And if she did, it would be to tell me I got mail, and it would be like, "You got mail." Click. That would be the whole conversation. So it got that weird, and I don't know why. She never said why she started doing all of that, and I'll get into it a bit later what she told me. But anyway, so that all of that was happening, and then I was also dealing with all of the stuff with a friend that I moved in with, and then my ex was kind of like, "You should be so happy. I'm so happy for you. You got your own apartment. Blah 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 blah, whatever." And I was just like, I don't feel happy right now because of everything. I was basically living in chaos the second that I decided to not live in my mother's house anymore, and it was crazy to me. So, um, we moved in February 1st, March, April. I'm just dealing with all these feelings, and I finally decided to get a therapist. So I found a therapist that took my insurance, and I went with her. And the first therapy session, I don't know if this happened to everybody, but I bawled like a baby. Um, but I also realized that I had like a lot of resentment towards my mother for a lot of things that I was just holding on to and not really processing. So I started seeing this therapist weekly, and we're discussing everything, and I'm telling her what's going on about my mom, and she was just like, "Well, you should really address it." So that's what I decided to do. So the next time she called me, I was like, "What's going on? Why are you acting like this towards me?" She was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. This, that." Heavy denial. Heavy denial. And if I asked my mother about this today, this never happened. So, and I'm being dead ass. She would tell me she never meant it that way, or I misunderstood her, or blah 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 blah. It's never how you felt. Never is what it is. So that was that, and then I kept trying to have the conversation, and she was just like, "Well, it's not me." And verbatim, she said to me one time, "Well, it's nothing to do with me. It has something to do with you. Maybe it's something that you need to go work on and figure out." Verbatim, this lady said this to me, and that had me feeling like if it was really an issue where I was dealing with something internally, like, I'm your daughter. I just moved out. I live on my own now. As my mother, wouldn't you want to help me through that? Wouldn't you want to talk to me about it? Wouldn't you want to figure out what it was, even if you thought it was that? But no, it was just like, you need to figure that out on your own. So that was that. And I think I stopped trying after that phone call because I told my therapist that's how I felt. Like, kind of like she abandoned me in a sense. And that that kind of is the end of like where were bad from, because you'll find out in the next episode what happens after that. I kind of won't disclose that, but I kind of want to also talk about like the fact that that wasn't the beginning. Like, I was surprised by what she said, but I wasn't surprised by her reaction and how she acted towards me, because that's how it's always been. But I never recognized it as that being trauma. And what made me recognize how many like things that I resented towards my mother was my therapist kind of asking me like, is this the first time something like this has happened? Like, this is your first time feeling like this? When's the first time you felt like this towards your mother? And I was like, damn. And the session actually told her like, no, I've never felt like this before, blah, 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 blah. And then I started thinking like, there's a lot of things between me and my mother that were traumatic. And I think a lot of black women who were raised by black single mothers have this kind of experience with their mother where it was kind of like they love you, but it's a competition, or B, like they motherfucking hate you at the same time. It's kind of like the concept of what my mom used to tell to me, like there can only be one woman in this house, as if I'm competing to be the woman of the house, you know? So there was a lot of things that I kind of recognized growing up, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy. Um, I think one of the first things that I didn't recognize was traumatic is that affected me traumatically, I guess, is my body image and how she kind of messed with my body image throughout my life. Um, when I was younger, I used to be fat. I mean, I kind of am fat now, but I'm working on it. But anyway, I was fat, and of course, being a child who was fat, you deal with being teased and things like that. But from my mother, it was like all of these things of like when she would buy clothes, I was compared to my sister a lot. My sister is older than me by 6 years, but she's also naturally like one of those naturally skinny people. Like she doesn't gain weight really. Like she eats and literally goes to take a shit. Like she doesn't gain weight. So she was always very, very skinny. Like to the point where like even though we were 6 years apart, she was probably wearing like she could fit into the same size as me in kids when she was like a teenager. So it bothered my mother because it got to a point where like she couldn't shop for me in certain places, and she was just like, this is crazy. Like Tricia's way older than you. I could shop for Tricia anyway, but for you, I have to go to special stores and this. And it made me feel like shit. Like imagine being a child and being told like basically like you're not normal. Like, and it wasn't just my mom that made me feel uncomfortable about my weight being younger. It was also her friends and people surrounding her. Like they'll be like, oh, look at Sasha, she got so big. And then when it was related to my sister, wow, she's just stay slim, she's always slim, blah 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 blah. So it was a lot of that. um but there was a lot of you know unnecessary bashing around my weight. Like, and my weight never got better until um, there was a point around the time that I was about to go to 8th grade. I was like 11, 12, and they were basically like, she's considered obese, so we need to, either you need to get her to a specialist to figure out how she can lose weight so it doesn't come like affect her health. So at that point, then my mom kind of took the better approach, in my opinion. Like she kind of took charge of it and made sure like I was eating a healthy breakfast. She made my lunch every day for school. Even though they served lunch at school, she made my lunch so that I had no choice but to eat the healthy lunch that she prepared for me. And then, of course, dinner at home. Like she cooked healthier overall. And then, that's how I lost weight. And then, like, I think also that summer I went to a sports camp. I decided to go to a sports camp because I was also about to start high school. Yes, so I was already in 8th grade. So anyway, I was already in 8th grade, and I decided to go to the sports camp because I was just like, I'm about to start high school. I want to be skinny when I start high school. So anyway, fast forwarding, I got into high school. I'm skinny now, and I'm still being shamed by my mother for what I look like. There was a lot of like, Sasha don't eat this, Sasha don't eat that. That's how she stays so slim. It was just like all of these things, like you're too small, you're too like, and it was just like, what? Like, huh? I don't understand. So I think at one point I learned to kind of like tune that out and move on, but I never really loved, and I think I still do struggle with loving my body for what it is because of how other people treated me around my body. Like, and it still is like a very hard struggle. And I think a lot of times I sabotage, like I purposely will eat bad foods and ruin all the progress I have when I do lose weight because of all of the criticism I've received over my body. And this is something I'm just saying on myself. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but it is what it is. Other things in my childhood that I feel like kind of traumatized me in my childhood was my pickup process from school. Me and my sister went to two separate schools. I went to a Catholic school. My sister at that point, she went to a public high school because she got kicked out of her Catholic high school. So anyway, my a lot of my childhood and being picked up, I was forgotten a lot. Okay, so I wouldn't say forgotten a lot, but there was a point like my mom got off of work later than I was supposed to get out of school. I got out of school like 2:30. My mom got out at 3:30. Um, and basically I was just told to wait for her. And I'm waiting. And as a child, you're not thinking about time. You're just seeing your friends leave and you're still there. So at some point I would go inside and call her because I'm like, what the hell? And if it was a day where she was working and I went inside, she'd be angry at me because she's just like, why you go outside? All the other kids is waiting. Why can't you just wait? Blah, 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 blah. Whatever. She would get mad at me. And then there were the days that she was off. So if you're off and I'm supposed to get out of school at 2:30, you're just thinking as a kid that your mom's going to be there. That wasn't the case on multiple occasions. Maybe not every time, but a lot of the times she would forget to pick me up on her day off and I would have to go inside to call her and then she'd be like, oh, Sasha, I'm sorry. I was sleeping. What? And my sister didn't have this problem because most of the time she would just come home on her own. But obviously I was in, grade school, so that wasn't really an option for me. There was this one time where I didn't want to go inside to call her because I didn't want to get in trouble for going inside and calling her and her being mad at me because I believe this day I thought she was at work, but she took off or something to do something with my dad. And I'm just staying outside. Literally all the kids have left at this point. I was the only kid outside. I'm petrified to go inside to call my mom and ask her where she is. It was so, this is how it was so bad. It was so bad and I had waited so long that the custodian had closed the gate, locked me into the yard. So at that point I had to go inside. He didn't even ask me if I was okay, nothing. He just closed the gate like, girl, go inside, give it up. So I go inside and I call her finally because the gate is not closed. It is not like I could go outside the regular gate. She's like, oh my God, Sasha, I'm so sorry. Blah, 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 blah. Just go to after school. We're stuck in traffic. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what? Huh? What? You forgot? Okay. And you might be thinking, okay, that might be something your mom does, but like in the grand scheme of things, how does that really traumatize me? Well, if my mom was going to pick up my sister from school, she wouldn't forget. In fact, the one time that she decided that she was going to pick up my sister from school, that's the time that she remembered to pick me up on time because my sister got out after me. Now, imagine how that feels as a child. Like, you remember to pick up my sister, but not the only reason she really wanted to like pick up my sister, I think that day, because she was getting into trouble, so she really wanted to know what she was doing. And I kind of internalized it then, like nobody really checks in on me because I don't do anything bad. And it sucks because, like, honestly, that could have changed a lot of things. I could have been like, well, I guess I'm finna do bad shit now to get attention. And I feel like a lot of the times black kids do that. Like, a lot of their parents, like, if they're doing good, they don't give them any attention. They forget about them, honestly. And then their kids start doing bad shit to get more attention. Gotta recognize the cycles, guys. But anyway, I feel like that bit of it was a little bit like a minor part of like what traumatized me, but it played a part. The next thing is she really traumatized me on what it meant to be like a woman and your role as a woman. So a lot of what she did was only giving me chores and not giving my brother chores. Like, now my brother has, like, as he got much older, like, he has, as a child, he wasn't given, like, as chores or like things to do. It was like always me, and it was emphasized. How she emphasized it was, you're a woman, you're gonna have a husband one day, you're gonna have to clean. How you gonna have like be have a husband and not want to clean? And she said this verbatim to me. She said, if you're gonna get a housekeeper, just know your housekeeper's gonna fuck your husband. What? And I was a child. Like, I want you to understand, I was no older than like 13 when she told me this. What? Huh? My thing is, like, I would never want my daughter to feel like she's being reduced to the idea of you cook and clean for your husband, or that you can't hire help because they're going to sabotage your family. They're going to sleep with your husband, as if the housekeeper is the issue, not your husband cheating on you is the issue. The housekeeper, bringing in the housekeeper is the issue, not your husband cheating on you. Because it doesn't take two people to have sex. It only takes the housekeeper, apparently. That's how she phrased it to me. Um, and, I kind of grew out of, luckily I didn't take any of this to heart. And as I grew up, I kind of realized like a lot of that is tied to like my mother's Caribbean thinking, like traditional Caribbean thinking. And I honestly don't know where she got this idea that your housekeeper is gonna fuck your husband, because she's never been married and that's never happened to her. So I don't know, but I don't even know what to say. We're gonna move on. So the other thing is financial toxicity. There was a lot of like, I don't even know how to word it. There was just a lot of like issues around money growing up. Actually, money is like one of the reasons like I moved out when I moved out, because a few months before I moved out, we actually got kicked out of our apartment for a few days because she was behind on rent. And that was actually normal. She was always behind on the rent. But she just somehow managed to like go to the courthouse, get like a payment plan and pay it off and get like on track, and then be behind again. And this time it didn't work out in her favor. Something went wrong and we got kicked out of our apartment for a few days. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. And this is not the only like bill that she's been behind. Like, she was always behind on all of our bills. Like, when I have a cell phone as a teenager, it was cut off most of the time. Like, I would go months without having a cell phone, even though I had a cell phone. And then there was times where there was no electricity because she was behind on that. There was no, like, I would say that there were times that we never went without food. So that's one thing. But every bill that you could think of that could get cut off, we've had that cut off in our house. So I drew the line, and I remember thinking, like, as a child, like, aren't you the adult? Like, you're supposed to take care of me. Like, why is this not taken care of? Like, and I was so mad at her. Like, one time, like, I was so angry. And I get, like, as a parent, like, when you have limited funds, especially as a single parent, there's only so much you can do. But it was just, like, it was the cycle of it happening over and over again. And, like, what are you not doing to ensure that this doesn't happen anymore, you know? Because my mom was terrible at money. I'm gonna say that. She was very bad at money. But yeah. So I just remember being mad at that. So when we got kicked out of our apartment for a few days and had to like buy clothes for work and doing all this other stuff, I was just like, I don't want to go through that again. So I left. And right now, I even also pay me and my mom's phone bill, and I've been doing that for years. Why? Because it got to a point I got tired of my phone being cut off. So when I got a job and I was started like at 17, I just paid for both of our phones because it was on the same contract anyway. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to pay it because I don't want my phone to be cut off. At least I can ensure that your phone is not cut off. or at least my phone is not cut off. I did that, and I'm still jealous of adults like who are my age who have like a family plan and can have like their parents pay their bill. Still jealous of y'all, and it irks me because I'm just like, y'all just get y'all parents to do blah blah blah, and here I am paying a phone bill with my mother, like for my mother. And then there was also the cable bill. So there was a point where she cut off the cable, and she didn't tell us. So we just had Wi-Fi, and I think the phone, but no cable, like cable channels. And at the time, when you're younger, there was no Netflix, there was no Hulu and all this other stuff. It was just either you had cable or you didn't watch TV. So at one point, Verizon started coming out, and I was just like, why don't we split the bill? Because at that time I was working, and yeah, we'll split the bill, and that way we can have cable. I was paying my half, she wasn't paying her half. So we get cut off because she wasn't paying her half. And it got into, well, you should just pay it because blah, blah, blah. I don't, like, you should just pay it. So I started paying the bill. So now I went from paying just our phone bills to now our phone bill and our cable bill. And I'm living in a house where I don't even have my own room. And then on top of that, she had also tried to ask me to pay her rent for the room that I don't have on top of the phone and the cable bill. And I was just like, I don't even make enough money for that. I barely have enough money to cover the two bills that I have to cover. Like, basically, those two bills were, like, taking most of my money. Because at the time, I was just working minimum wage. I was making, like, $8.75 an hour. I wasn't making no coins. So, whatever. I feel like she coerced me into paying the cable bill. And I hope this is not sounding like I'm complaining. But I want you to think of like all of this, like me not saying this as me an adult, but this is what was happening to me as a child. Like when I was paying the phone bill and the cable bill, I was like 17 years old, like taking care of all of this. I was in college, but I was still 17 years old. I don't know what bills or things you guys had to pay when you guys were younger, but that was just that. Another thing she used to do was just like, there was a point when I first started college, I was 16, I didn't have an ID. So my, your financial aid, like cutback check that they give you, like when basically if you get more financial aid than what your school costs, they'll give you back a check or whatever. So they gave us back a check, and I was supposed to use that for my books and stuff, but she would just spend it on other stuff like the bills and things like that, and I would not get any books, or it would take her a while to get me the books because she spent the check on something else and then decided to get my books whenever. So I got to a point where I just got I got my financial aid check just loaded onto a card so I could just use it immediately because she was taking her time to give me the books. And then she got mad at me for that as well because she was just like, it's not going to cover all your books and all that. I just don't understand why she was mad. And I do understand why she was mad because in the grand, she was using it for other stuff, and she just, was mad that she wouldn't get that money. But it was just like, I'm your child, wouldn't you? Whether or not I get it loaded onto a separate card, if I needed the extra funds to get extra books, wouldn't you just want to help me? I don't know. The last thing around money is like she would ask me for money a lot on top of like what I was already paying, and it got to a point where she was so comfortable doing it, she didn't just ask for it, she demanded it. It was just like, I remember when I just moved out, and my sister, she was just like, I want to meet up with you. I want to go let's go get drinks or whatever. Because at that point, I'm 22. So she's like, let's go meet up, get drinks, get food, whatever. And whatever. My mom texted both of us talking about, I need $100. And it was not the fact that she asked. It was just like, I need $100. That can I spare? Can one of you lend me $100? Can one of you give me $100? And I was just like, when I lived with her, it wasn't no problem. Like if she needed money, extra money to pay the bills, I would just give it to her. It wasn't a big deal. But she knew I just moved. She knew I really didn't have money like that. So I told my sister, I was like, I don't have the funds. I literally just moved into this place. Like I don't have the money. And two, she really wasn't even talking to me like that. My sister ended up giving her the money. That was that. But that's just how I was treated. And I learned later, like when I would talk to my dad, like he would also manipulate him. She would also manipulate him for money, in those situations. And actually, times that I've noticed that too. She would tell him like, I remember one time when I started school. Actually, I thought I would need money for something, and then I reread the paper, and they were like, actually, it's free if X Y Z, and I fit the criteria. So I was just like, oh, actually, mom, I don't need this money. She was like, I'm telling your dad that you need it anyway, and she would just keep the money. Um, Also in my school, like you could go outside for lunch, so she would give me like $5 a day to buy lunch because at the time fast food was cheap. That's not the case no more. But she would give me like $5 a day for lunch, and when my dad actually got back from jail, he came back, and I guess she decided to make him start giving me the money because whatever, and I remember him asking me like, "Oh, how much money do you get?" And she cut me before I could say anything. She cut me off and said she gets $10 a day. And I mean, I guess I should be happy because she gave me a raise, but it was just like, what are we doing? I don't know. And then and I ended up getting cut off anyway, after some time because when he moved out, I had to pay, and I had to pay, but she basically demoted me to what I was getting before. And I think what's crazy about that is that she didn't see that as manipulation. She just thought that like people should be giving her money. Like in her mind, like you should always want to help your mother. You should always want to, like she was telling my dad like you need to give me more money to be taking care of her. At one point, he was giving me like $100 or something, $100 and something dollars a month, and I would use that like to buy stuff. Like if I needed like stuff for school, or like I wanted to buy like a couple like outfits or something, then I would use that money to do that. And she was telling him, you need to give me more money on top of that to take care of her. And I'm just like, what in God's name? But whatever. And I'm sure like a lot of you think like, I'm sure your mom would give you her last dollar, if she had it, like if you needed something. And that was also not the case. And I didn't recognize this until I was talking to my ex, and my ex would be like, if my mom only had $1, she would give me that dollar. And I was just like, that wouldn't happen for me. So like when I started college, you know, didn't really have a job at the time, and I didn't get a job until the summer after my first year of college. So, going to college, there's no like free lunch or anything. It was just like I'm gonna be at school all day, and I'm gonna need some money to eat something. So there would be times she'd give me money, there'd be times I had no money, and then I'd be like, mom, hey, do you have like $5 just so I could eat something when I'm at school? And she would be like, I only have $5, and just look at me. And then that was the end of the conversation. I'd be like, and then I would kind of like comfort myself, but be like, oh no, it's all right, it's fine, I got it. Just not eat nothing for the day. And that's just how it was. And again, hopefully I'm not sounding ungrateful. I know there's people who've dealt with like worse things with their parents. And I don't hate my mom. Again, we're going to have a part 2 where I discuss how we repaired our relationships and me dealing with all of this trauma I had, and kind of, letting it be what it is. I just hope that you guys understand my point of view and where I'm coming from. But that is sort of everything I kind of dealt with my mom. And as far as, trauma, childhood stuff. So hopefully you guys get it. Hopefully, the girls that get it. I don't want to say that. But hopefully you guys get it, and you don't think that I'm like some bratty adult that's trying to bash my mom, because I'm not. I don't hate my mom. I don't hate any of my parents. Both of my parents. I don't hate my father. I don't hate my mom. But there was a lot of trauma that I experienced. And not all of it was bad. Like, I was a student. I was an honor roll student growing up from as long as I can remember. So one of the things that my parents really did encourage is like my school journey, and they're really proud of me for that. So I guess that's kind of why I kept that up, because I knew that I would be praised for that. But you know, not all parents get it right. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and say all parents don't get it right. We're all doing what we can, and I understand that my mom was doing what she can with what she knew. But I hope you guys watch part 2 of this episode to really understand how everything came together and what ended up happening in the end. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please follow the podcast on Instagram at Adulting with Wine, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.